Alright, welcome to the most boring workout vlog on the internet. Doing a pretty good job of selling this already, but yeah, the trip to the gym today was a little snowy, but because it's my first day back post elbow fracture, I needed to get it in. As you can maybe tell, I'm a little tight. I haven't done anything since mid-September. I've just been doing some really boring machine-based bodybuilding. So if you notice how tight I was to start, couldn't even keep my heels on the ground during a squat, had to keep my feet pretty close together. I'm just trying to open all of that up. My body takes a really long time to actually warm up, and as you can tell, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. Yeah, so anyway, I managed to fracture my elbow back in September, and then after I was rehabbing that, I managed to do a little bit of damage to my adductor during a squat session. So you can see here during the Cossack Squats, my adductor is still kind of bugging me in that long position, but we'll be taking care of that as this return to sport goes on. As you can see, mobility is opening back up, heels are staying down on the ground, and I can squat in a wider stance and a narrower stance, which is really nice. So now I just got to open up my back and my shoulders a little bit. I don't really ever do this, but today I felt like it was necessary since I haven't gone into any like hyperextension style work in quite a while. So lats were a little tight, T-spine was just a little tight, so I'm just opening that up very slightly, and you'll see just a couple rounds of this. Usually I'd be holding a PVC pipe, but I couldn't find one. That just opens up that T-spine, those lats, just a little bit more, so now I can go full overhead without really any problems. Then, just because I haven't gone through full range of motion in a while, and I'm not doing anything heavy today, as you'll see later, just doing a little bit of banded distraction work on the hips, and the ankles, just making sure I have that full joint range of motion for everything. Finally getting a barbell back in my hands. Again, it has been about since September since I've had a bar in my hands. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually just holding my overhead position with the correct external rotation that I want. What I found really early on in the rehab process was that because I had fractured that radius, the rotation of my forearm when I'm holding anything above my head is actually really important. I want the biceps as far upwards as I can possibly have them through the full range of motion, because otherwise the way that the torque is going through the elbow is aggravating that site injury. So I'm actually just really focusing on that external rotation and opening that up today. So as you can see, as I'm going through that squat, those biceps start to rotate forwards, and that's what I'm trying to fight against to open up that mobility. So basically I went through about 5 sets, 6 sets of overhead squats, really focusing on my hips, my heels staying down, and obviously any bar shift in that position too. Now for this year, I'm going to be using the squat jerk. I actually prefer the opposite style lockout for the squat jerk. So I actually prefer biceps forward to lock it up with the traps. So what I'm doing here is I'm really focusing on that internal rotation, locking it out with the traps, and just making sure that my elbow is actually able to tolerate this extreme position. It turned out it was pretty comfortable with it, which was really, really good. I was expecting not to be able to do this, but I was actually able to go through the motions of having that full internal rotation on those biceps in this squat jerk position. As you can see, that TFL on the left side just keeps on seizing up a little bit. I just need to open up my hips a little bit more as this week goes on. But this overhead squat jerk position is looking nice and clean and nice and upright. So now in order to open up my lats a little bit more, I am doing a close grip external rotation here. As you can see, this is significantly more tension than the internal grip or the internal rotation. And for me, that's actually why I prioritize that internal rotation on the squat jerk, is because it loads heavy into the traps, whereas this loads heavy into the lats. And as we can see, I'm much more comfortable in those traps when my hands are close together instead of in my lats, just due to a mobility restriction. Which again is something that I'm working on here and actually opening up at pace as well. So that was basically all the overhead work I did today. I then went through a couple of my positions, focusing on pushing the ground away, keeping my back nice and tight, elbows out to the side a little bit. Then going through my recovery as I bring that bar into my power position, and then making sure I go straight up with the legs. Unfortunately, as I was pulling, I was rotating a little bit. I was actually meaning to get the elbows as high as possible, but that just wasn't happening today. So because I am taking a very conservative approach, I am not actually turning over the full barbell yet. I'm only turning over a PVC pipe for right now. Now, basically what I'm doing here is just seeing how the tension is through my lats while I turn that bar over in multiple different heights of my receiving position. As you could probably see, the lower I got, the more my biceps tended to point forwards, which is something I want to correct. Now, as I'm going through that entire session, I'm thinking about basically what things are feeling fatigued, what things are feeling overstressed, and basically I'm going into those now. I'm working on my Copenhagen's, getting those adductors to work because I felt a little bit of stress in those as I was going through my squats, and I actually felt a little bit of stress in my ant-tib at the bottom of the squats. So I'm just working on adding a little bit of work into those over the next couple weeks. And of course, then going through the couch stretch, just opening everything up. And the last thing that I did today was the rice bucket, just continuing working on the fine development, going up into that left elbow, as I've had a lot of atrophy in my grip and a lot of atrophy in the forearm and tricep of that left arm. So I did all of that just to see where I'm starting from on Monday when I actually start lifting weights again, and yeah, that's when I'm going to be starting to lift.